Adjust your podcast. I am in control. This is the do not attempt to adjust the vertical and the horizontal. It is me here on this podcast. Hello. It's We Were Gamers.
Nice.
I am JJ. This is episode great question. 198? Nice.
He's doing the good thing.
Is that right?
That's the way you host, dude.
Yeah, it is.
You don't know the numbers.
I'm here with Andrew.
Hey. I apologize for my mic, by the way. I am
197. 197.
Oh, okay. Yes.
So close.
So close. I'm on the road.
No corrections. Oh.
I'm at an undisclosed location.
on assignment.
Yep. Yeah. But it's good. So I don't have my normal mic, but I'm trying out this idea of this headset thing that I bought. So hopefully it's good.
And we also have everyone's favorite podcaster, Michael.
Hey, everybody.
You weren't recording. He's the soft one.
As opposed to the doughy one.
That's... Hey, he labeled himself that one.
Oh, that's true. I did.
Look, I really... In not at all the spirit of this podcast, there's like video games that I really want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel bad for hosting this week because now I'm going to turn this into a video game podcast.
What's wrong with that?
I don't know. Does anyone have any like other like life stuff we want to talk about before we get into video games?
Hey, yes, I do. I do have life stuff I want to talk about for half a minute.
Rad.
JJ, I have to shout out you on this podcast.
Why, thank you, Andrew.
I called Michael. I called him multiple times in the middle of a workday.
Okay.
In a blind panic about the dumbest things when it comes to Cat 6 cable.
I was just gonna say.
Wait, I thought it was all fine. We were texting some, and I was like, oh, like, you know, I was just throwing you some, like, here's a link. Like, you look, this stuff isn't that hard. You're probably fine. And then my phone rings at like 10 o'clock or something. I don't remember where I was, a meeting or something. And I was like, I can't answer this now. I'll talk to you at noon when I'm on lunch. Yeah. And then I called him back at lunch. And was this when you were trying to figure out between like the A and the B side or whatever?
This was the main call was the A and B side thing. The texting was later about which direction to point the jacks, up and down. And they're not marked. But they are, it turns out, marked by the way they fit in the jack. Anyway.
But it turns out it doesn't matter. You can install it upside down. No one's going to care.
You know, the only advice I saw that made a little bit of sense, so I did it, was install it with the little catch release, I guess is what you would call it.
The little tab, yeah.
Tab pointed down, so the pins are up, and you block dust from landing on the pins.
Yeah, it's a decent thought.
It's a theory that I was fine to abide by.
It is a similar thought to cords that have the 3-prong should be installed upside down so that the third prong is on the top so that the cable is not pulling the thing out of the
due to weight
socket. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that I was taught by electrical at my company. Electrical engineers. They're like, oh, see, like this, if you attach a big heavy thing to the end of that cord, which 99 times you're not, but if you were, it's just the cord is just gonna eventually slowly pull away from the thing, and then you're not gonna be plugged in anymore.
All right.
Yeah. You learn something every day.
Yeah. The only so in residential, like here we go. In residential electricity, that's not the right word.
You're talking about like wiring for houses.
Yeah. So if you see an upside down jack in a home, it means that it's on a switch.
Okay.
Just so you guys know,
It's like
that's the way that they used to delineate that jack is on that plug is on a switch because it's upside down. So
I wish they still did that.
I wish they did that too. Or I wish that nobody put things on plugs, because why?
Yeah, that's mine. It's just like the plug should just always be on. And it's just you turn the thing on or off connected to the plug.
Yeah. I mean, we invented the clapper to solve this problem. It shouldn't be happening anymore.
True that.
Anyway, we went through a lot of, I thought silly, but it turns out somewhat common questions about how to wire Cat 6 jack and all that sort of stuff. And JJ was very gracious about it. And I've tested it all, and it all works perfectly. So I now have my own little patch panel in my home.
Nice. That's Those questions are totally normal, and you would encounter any person looking to mess with cables in their home would ask the same questions. So don't feel bad. Absolutely. Like, what is the difference between the A and the B thing? Guess what? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it kind of doesn't matter is what it turns out. But I've never done anything like that before, like splicing wire and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it's tedious and my fingers hurt after and all that kind of thing.
Yes.
But like, people make it into a big deal, and if you kind of understand it, like, or ask a lot of questions, so you do, then it's not as big as it sounds. A big job.
Did you have a crimper or did you borrow one?
Oh, so the I have not crimped yet. I did all this stuff into RJ45 jacks.
Okay, so you've done the end plate. You haven't made the thing.
I haven't made patch cable yet.
That's what I'm asking. Okay.
Yeah. So I have to do patch cable next, but I already have 5E patch cables that I'm using.
Yeah, and those work.
They work all right for now, and I can do 6 when I'm ready to, like...
Also, it turns out now that you have the stuff in the wall, the rest of it can literally wait, and you have 400 extra feet or whatever, whenever you have time.
Yeah, exactly.
For folks
that mess up the patch cables 150 times.
For folks that don't know, you buy this, like, if you want to make your own Ethernet cables, by the way, very cheap to do, and very, well...
Relatively cheap. Not entirely cheap, right? Because I had to buy 500 feet of cable for $80.
Yes, but now you have more cables than you could ever possibly use. And you never buy another Ethernet cable as long as you live. I
fully expect, now that I put this out in the world, that multiple people of family are going to be like, hey, I'm redoing my house. You want to come run some Cat 6 cable?
Yeah, probably.
Uh-huh. And friends, too, when they buy homes.
It's a thing, man. It's a good plan. And, like, even if you end up not using it most of the time, having it and not needing it is better than needing it and not having it.
Oh, and I definitely need it, right? Because my PC doesn't even have Wi-Fi, so...
Big problem.
I mean, well, I like stable and fast internet, so...
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, that was my life minute, so that we can talk about Baldur's Gate for 5 hours now.
All right. So, you guys, did either of you guys watch this thing?
The trailer?
Or, well, the trailer first, and then the, like, gameplay demos that have come out since.
So I got to watch the trailer, but that is as far as I got. I did not get to watch any of the gameplay demos, although I intended to.
I think that the gameplay demo time that I did get to see, my time being limited with this house project, looked a lot like fancy Diablo 3. Fancier Diablo 3.
Okay, so we're talking about Baldur's Gate 3 here, I guess, for the people.
Mm-hmm.
Which is... Baldur's Gate is like a Boomers series RPG.
Whoa.
The game is old, dude. The last version of Baldur's Gate released in 1998.
Okay.
That's old.
But it's based on Dungeons and Dragons, and more directly than anybody ever has been based on Dungeons and Dragons.
Right. And in fact, it is not just directly based. It is a officially licensed Dungeons and Dragons thing. It takes place in the Forgotten Realms. Baldur's Gate is his town.
Maybe we could get some Drizzt.
Drizzt is in Baldur's Gate 2.
I know.
Like, you can actually meet him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's in the current continuity.
No.
But I don't know if you guys know, but Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition is really popular.
You know what it reminds me of more than... it reminds me of like the promise of what Dragon Age 1 was.
So, funny you say that, actually. This game reminds me of what... so it's being made by a company named Larian Studios. Makers
of Divinity.
Divinity Original Sin and Divinity Original Sin 2. Divinity Original Sin 2, by the way, one of the greatest game RPGs out there today. People should go play that.
Successful Kickstarters, by the way.
Absolutely, both of those were. Despite being a proud backer of both of those games, I recommend anyone play Original Sin 2. That game is great. It requires no knowledge of Original Sin 1. It takes place like 1,000 years in the future or something, and is a wonderful game. People should play that game. It's really, really good.
Nice.
So Larian Studios made that game, and the way the founder, I don't know what his name is, title actually is, but
Chief Founding Officer. No, that's financial.
His name is Sven Vinka with an E at the end. I don't know. They're in Belgium. I don't know how you pronounce Belgish names. Belgish?
Belgish. That's not it. That's not it. Try again.
That's not Belgish.
Belgian?
Belgian?
Belgian.
Yeah. Anyway, the way he tells the story is that...
I speak French in Belgium.
Okay. That doesn't help me because I don't speak French.
Okay.
The way he tells the story, which I've heard related on podcasts and things, is that they made Original Sin 1 and they went to Wizards of the Coast and they're like, hey, you guys should give us the Baldur's Gate license. Look at this Divinity Original Sin game. It did really well. Also, we would love to make this game. We've been dreaming about it for like years. People on our staff love D&D, all this stuff. And
cool. That's the people you want to make a game?
Wizards was like, I don't know. We'll see. Not ready to do this now. Bye. And then Larian went and made Divinity Original Sin 2, right? And everything was bigger and better. The systems were more refined. The combat and the writing was different. It was a really, way more interesting game to play. And in the meantime, the founder keeps asking the Wizards, like, hey, look at this one. What about this? And the Wizards guys are like, yeah, this looks pretty good. And then, right before the game is about to launch, I guess, Original Sin 2, right? Because they'd gone through early access and done all this stuff. Right before the game is about to launch, he gets a call from the business guys at Wizards of the Coast. They're like, I'm going to show this. Do you still want to do that game? I'm going to show you show the management the idea you sent me before. Like, are you still in for this? And he's like, absolutely, yes. Got on a plane to Seattle that night, turned around, was there for the pitch meeting or whatever. It went really well. Looking at Divinity Original Sin 2, it was really great. Everyone really liked it. And now they are developing this game.
I mean, this looks really good. I since you started talking, I was like, it's unfair of me to comment without saying, I've seen a lot of the data, but it really reminds me of the Dragon Age system.
So Original Sin has a lot of, the
original Dragon Age system.
I see a lot of Original Sin 2 in this gameplay demo.
Mm-hmm.
The way the characters take actions, like the look of the cursor, how the rounds and turn-based combat move. I definitely see a lot of the DNA there, but wow, it looks way better. They just turned all the visuals way up.
Graphics straight to 11.
Yeah, and they took so the game is modeled on 5th edition D&D, which I have not personally played, but I know that a lot of people really, really, really like. I think someone was telling me that it's the most popular, not only the most popular D&D edition, which, I mean, it's the newest one, and that I guess it makes some sense that would be more popular than the older ones, but it's more popular than all the older ones combined.
Man. Wow.
So D&D is having a renaissance these days.
I mean, straight up, this is D&D.
This is the D&D rule set.
I'm watching this and his cursor's moving inside squares, just like in BattleTech. It's just hidden. The squares are hidden.
So that's not true. In Original Sin 2, it's kind of free movement within radiuses.
I see. Yeah, but the radiuses are essentially squares, right?
It's your character has a stat that shows how fast they can move or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you get that much distance, and wherever that takes you, if it's on top of a box or over rocks or whatever, you just have to pay those costs.
Popping up above this guy's head when he goes up and down the stairs and stuff. It's saying difficult terrain above his head.
Mm-hmm.
All sorts of stuff like that, where maybe accept that being done in the background, but instead it's just like popping it up straight up in the game.
And like later in the demo, there's a part where he walks over like a grease trap on the floor, and it says like saving throw passed, and he like doesn't fall over, you know?
Oh wow.
Or there's cases where you can tell that like a switch just appears on the wall, right? It's like, oh, like clearly he passed a perception check or something, and the switch just appears like, oh, he noticed that the flip switch to turn off the trap was on the wall, right? Yeah. So like the kind of stuff that would happen when you were playing D&D, you know, you're like,
well, but also like he's unlocking this door or he's trying to talk to somebody through this door, and it's like, make a deception check, and the whole screen turns into a die.
Yeah. So the conversation system is super cool in this. Like, it's from the gameplay demo they gave, right? You expect in RPGs, and even in like the games that Larian has made before, when you talk to a character, you have like maybe 4 or 5 responses, right? It's like, oh, here's the like good aligned choice. Here's the like kind of evilish one. Here's a funny one. Here's like I'll do what you want, but please pay me more kind of option, you know, those kind of things. And it's like they may be well written or interesting, but there's not a lot of like truly different paths you can take the conversation down. In the conversations they showed in this, he was playing as a vampire spawn, which is a like D&D thing, but basically like a person who used to be in thrall to a vampire lord, but due to unfortunate circumstances related to mind flayers, now is no longer, and is able to go out in the sunlight, also because of that mind flayer situation.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting, right? And one of the options, like, you know, you're talking to this character, right? And it's like, oh, I don't want to let on that I'm a vampire. And you can just try and deceive your, you know, like there's like a hello, like a courteous, like, you know, I don't trust you kind of option. And then there's a straight up like lie to your friend option. And then like 6 other options. Like there's like 10 options available just on the first like hello screen. And like that's a surprising amount of different paths that your character could take down just this like early conversation thing. And
I'm curious what you see here when you look at the combat versus, I thought Original Sin was live combat. I remember Dragon Age was live combat.
No,
this is turn-based?
Yes, it's all turn-based. And both Original Sins are also turn-based.
Oh. I thought the Original Sin was the one that later on in development added in a patch or something the ability not to do or to do turn-based.
So I think you're thinking of Pillars of Eternity.
Oh, Pillars of Eternity.
Which is a famed system that used the real-time with pause kind of combat system, which is what Baldur's Gate 2 had. So, I mean, somewhat controversially, I guess, they aren't doing that system here. It's straight turn-based. And someone asked that question to him at like a PAX Q&A or something, and was like, hey, like, you know, is there going to be a real-time with pause option, you know, or is this just straight turn-based? He's like, the game is turn-based. The D&D rules translate better into a turn-based system, so that's what we went with. And also, we have made turn-based games before. You know, we don't want to start over making some new real-time with pause thing that we've never tried.
Our Divinity Original 2 engine is
it's turn-based. Yeah. Okay,
Michael, what's your experience with D&D? Because I know JJ and I used to play this like Saturday nights for years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've watched all the episodes of Stranger Things.
Okay. Have you ever played D&D?
No, I have never played D&D.
Do you know like what a mind flayer is besides what Stranger Things told you?
I feel like I looked it up when they introduced it in Stranger Things to see what it actually is, but now I don't really remember what I looked up.
Okay.
Because of Stranger Things or because Mind Flayer?
Did it flay that knowledge out of your mind?
Yeah.
It's very possible.
I think all the explosions at the end of season 2 rocked it out of his brain.
Oh, gosh.
Very possible. So I'm curious then, Michael, you watched this or parts of this, like the intro movie and stuff. Did
you watch the trailer or the intro video?
Yeah, I watched the intro cinematic.
Okay.
Does it look interesting to you?
It does. It does. I always, I'm a sucker for a good intro cinematic. And I got the same impression from the cinematic that Andy seems to have gotten from watching some of the gameplays, that it definitely reminded me of the first Dragon Age.
That's
oh yeah,
so interesting that both you guys go there, because it doesn't look like it plays anything like that Dragon Age game at all.
So that opinion might change for me on seeing how the actual game plays.
Did you play that first Dragon Age Origins?
Yes, Origins.
Yes.
Yeah, that game was good.
It was. I had one big complaint with that game, but
I want to know.
Oh, okay. My complaint was that there was zero way to grind. So the game was linear story progression. It took you through it. You had your combat, you leveled up your characters, you made skill tree choices, but there was no way to get more experience or to really respec your characters. So once you made a choice, you were kind of locked into it. And if you got stuck because you had spec'd yourself poorly, there was no good way to get yourself unstuck.
Yeah. The respec thing is definitely a problem with that game.
Yeah, I mean, that existed all the way through those earlier BioWare games. I think Dragon Age was the beginning of understanding of changing of the guard of how to play those types of RPGs and options to give people.
Yeah, Mass Effect suffers from similar problems in that if you
definitely
pick a certain way, you can't really change later.
Oh, and the Jedi, both the Jedi games have that problem too.
Yeah, KOTOR for sure, both of them. Mm-hmm. So okay, that's very interesting, because like this stuff where like you click on the deception check and then it straight up rolls a D20 in the middle of your screen. Like that looks interesting to you? I just like, because like I have the nostalgia for rolling a D20 while playing D&D, and I don't know that people that haven't are interested in that. It's like interesting to me that you would think that it's cool, which great, I guess.
I find humor in it, and I think that's what draws me in.
Huh. I wonder how many hours in the humor will wear off on a lot of people.
And by the time it does, it might be that the game itself has hooked people.
Dude, they got teleporting dragons in this game. I'm in.
Yeah, there's dragons chasing a giant mind flayer ship, a tadpole that goes in through your eye. It's really
Star Trek vibes there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's just a different, location than the mind flayer and Stranger Things, right?
Right. That one's the ear,
Stranger
right?
Things just went in through the mouths or something.
Yeah. I think you see it in a few different places, right? Anyway.
I don't remember.
It is just shocking to me how much better that game looks than Divinity Original Sin 2, man. And like in the conversations, the screen will like tilt in and it almost looks like a third-person action game or something. Like you get like up close personal, like with the characters and facial capture, voice lines, everything. That's what reminded me
also of Dragon Age, right? Dragon Age was...
Yeah, that's right. So Dragon Age did stuff like that, right?
Yeah, but it was so different than Diablo in that aspect, right? Like, yeah, everything kind of looks like Diablo because Diablo kind of set the tone, and they all did that isometric third, person above thing. But pulling in like that was the new thing in Dragon Age, I think, overall, and having those conversation trees and all that sort of thing. BioWare really opened that up, and then seeing it here and done with where like it popped in on that guy that you're following him through and he's looting bodies and stuff, and then he starts talking to somebody through a door, and I was like, whoa, the textures are just as good up close.
Yeah. The interestingly, that conversation tree stuff is like stuff from the 90s or something. Like BioWare didn't invent that stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Like it was in the original Baldur's Gate 2, all absolutely. That had those
but
stuff.
Like the idea of making a mini cutscene and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely bringing it in and making it a cutscene for every conversation or whatever. Yeah. Larian has said every conversation is voiced in this game, that seems like a lot of dialogue to me. Especially if it has to account for all these different options. And one choice near the end of the demo, he says, you go to the camp, which they didn't show in the gameplay video I was watching, but he talked about it because they ran out of time. He says you go to the camp screen and you can rest and re-memorize your spells, that kind of D&D type stuff you do at a camp. But as the vampire character, one of the options one of the things that can happen to you is you have the thirst, for blood. And if that happens to you while you're at the camp, you got to make a decision. Are you going to bite your friends?
Can you eat animals?
I don't know what the options are, like what available choices you have. Certainly you can try to resist the thirst, but then I imagine you got to roll a dice.
Ooh.
What happens if you roll bad? And then, what happens if you go to bite them and then you roll bad again and you drink all their blood? I think they die. I think that's how that works in D&D, or they become a slave or something. I'm not sure.
Can you make mini vampires as the vampire?
Yeah, I don't know what that's a D&D question. I don't know what the D&D rules about vampires making vampires are.
If you know.
Yeah, that's
the answer to this question.
That is podcast at wewergamers.com. And that is cool. I like that. That's just one race. There's 10 other races that you can be in D&D, right? You could be a tiefling and end up half demon. You can be you can be a human. You can be a half elf.
Dragonkin.
Yes, right? I think that's what they call them, right? Dragonkin?
Yeah, Dragonkin. Yeah. Human dragons, Michael.
Gotcha.
Yeah. People with dragon heads. They
have dragon heads but human bodies.
And they showed elves and dwarves and the usual type races out there. So, it looks like they're doing the whole thing, man. It's the impression that I got from watching the video was they accounted for way more things than you would have thought they did. So one other scene from the gameplay demo that I thought was really cool. He goes into what is super obviously a haunted tomb. He's big church dilapidated church looking thing, and there's skeletons all over the ground. You're all right, I know what's going to happen here. And the guy doing the demo, of course, has played it 500 times, and so he also knows what's going to happen here. But he's decided at this point to break, because you can separate your party, right? And he's left half of his party members outside. And
why would you do that?
Because he wanted to. You can. He only has this main vampire rogue character, and so knowing that there's a bunch of skeletons here who are going to attack him at some point, right? He goes over to each of the skeletons' bodies and loots their weapons and throws them across the room. And he goes up to the skeleton archer and picks up its bow, which is not good. It's a bad bow, but 4 skeletons with bows is better than one guy. So he goes and grabs the bow and throws it all over there. He grabs the sword and throws it over there, and goes and grabs the other one's bow and throws it on the other side of the room. And he's this works now. I don't know that this is going to help me in the final version when the AI designers have seen this. And then, he goes and messes with the tomb or whatever, and obviously all the skeletons jump up. But then they have to spend a turn going and grabbing their weapons to shoot at him. In the meantime, he took one of those speed potions or whatever and has run halfway out of the room before the skeletons can attack him.
I feel like they shouldn't change that.
It's cool that it's an option, right?
Right. I mean, the first time through a game, you might not think to loot everybody and take their weapons away. I mean, you wouldn't, right?
If you know to strategize like that because you've played that kind of game before.
I guess, but it's not even though I've played that kind of game before, just running up on bodies in places, I'm not always going to think it's a trap.
Yeah, exactly, right. Especially, it depends how many times they've conditioned you to just be hey, there are dead skeletons on the ground with swords. That's just a normal thing that happens in a dungeon where people have died.
Right.
Yeah.
They also showed, so the game is turn-based, right? And the combat is turn-based, and they show that you can go into turn-based mode. When you're not in combat, right, everything just moves smoothly. You don't have to, wait for rounds or anything. But you can go into the turn-based mode outside of combat if you want to do sneaking, for instance, you want to creep up on bad guys to get the jump on them or whatever.
Okay.
And at that point, he says the game moves in 6-second slices. That must be a D&D thing, because why such a specific amount of time?
I'm sure it's a D&D thing.
1 round or something.
Yeah, there was definitely a starting with the edition with the cards, they quantified the amount of time that actions take because people were like, I do this, and this all at the same time, and I pass all my checks. And it's like, it would physically take you 4.5, 5 seconds to do one of those things, and you're doing all of them on your turn. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like, just because your stats are that high doesn't mean you can physically break the rules of time, right? Unless you're a wizard, and then you can.
So a lot of the turn things were, what can you do in X seconds? So yeah, I remember that being a thing.
So that makes sense. But then he uses it as a reason to show you that, like, hey, you could have sneaked through this dungeon, and like the patrolling guards or whatever, you can just wait for them to be out of sight and use your shadow movement to step over to this part or put out the torches, and so their vision radius goes down and you can sneak by them and that kind of stuff. Like, just straight up being like, hey, you want to, like, you know, go sneak into a tomb and rob it? That's like totally a thing you can do in this game, like, you know, a D&D game.
Right. Yeah.
So super, super cool. I cannot be more excited for this thing than really any game that's come out in maybe a really long time.
I have not heard you this excited in a while.
What would you guys say if I told you this game was coming to early access?
Is that just like pre-release now, based on the size of that studio?
So what they have done with the last two games, right? The Original Sin came out in early access and Original Sin 2, and they followed basically a similar trajectory, right? They put it into early access with like the first act, quote unquote, of the game, and then like they basically use it as like a giant beta test. But like not like a Blizzard beta test where basically everything is decided already and like they're just going to make some minor changes on the back and like call it good. This is like a real one where they like say, hey, like, what do you guys think about these classes and stuff? And then they take all that feedback and then make massive changes to the way all the classes work before release.
It's a version 0.25 and not a version 0.95.
Yes, exactly. Original Sin 2, when it went into, had the first act or like half of the first act or something in the early access version. And half of the classes that ended up in the game weren't in the game when it went into early access. They iterated on the ones that were there. All the skills, or a bunch of the skills, ended up working differently than they were. And then like they do the normal stuff like balance changes, like, oh, okay, this fight is actually super hard. Like it's way, way too difficult. We need to tone that down. Or this one skill literally just destroys every single monster. That's way too good. That kind of stuff. So they have said that they're going to do that with this game as well. And I assume that their plan, you know, again, who knows what they will say, but I assume their plan is to do something like that and then, you know, figure out all the balance problems here so that in theory by the time it releases it's less unbalanced. Which I say less because Original Sin 2 then after like, you know, 2 or 3 months worth of release got giant balance changes throughout the entire game anyway. So you know, it's one of those things where like people all gravitate to what is the best skills and best builds or whatever, right? And if there's one thing that's just like way more powerful than everything else, they can't let that be if they want you to have fun trying stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I am torn though, because like I don't know if I want to play it in early access. If I just want to wait, like follow the development updates and then just like wait to play it, you know?
Yeah, I'm kind of personally, I liked doing the BattleTech early access that we got with our Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm starting to be inundated with too much to do and not enough time to do it all, to take a game that I'm kind of like, okay, well, that's fine. At least in like the Blizzard beta version of the world, you kind of like, if you put in the time, you know, the game is mostly going to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's in theory possible that some of your data is actually going to carry over. There's a lot of benefit to playing in a Blizzard beta that maybe an early access game is not going to float to you as much. And especially when it's like this, where they're going to change so much. I think it's valuable for people that are really into the game to do, because they'll understand the nuances of what's broken, what's not working right, what should be working better that I'm not going to know. Like, yeah, I might find a bug, right? Where I'm like, hey, the textures don't load in this part of the map. But beyond that, I'm not going to have super duper like D&D notes for them of like,
right, like that's my
vampire class should be X% stronger versus this type of monster or whatever.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff where like I am not a detailed player of games like that, so how am I going to see like, oh, actually, when you are a vampire attacking a goblin, you should have a +2 racial modifier, and therefore my chance to hit should be this instead of this. Like, that's the kind of bugs that I can't, like, I'm not detail-oriented enough to potentially ever see, right? Like, you could tell me that that system was working fine, and I would just believe you. You know? And that's the kind of stuff you would find with a beta test, right? With, like, 10 million people looking at it, as opposed to, like, you know, the 50 or whatever in-house. So
yeah, I just I don't have time to be a beta tester right now.
Michael, did you play any of the Bloodstained backer early access thing? Did you get that?
No, I didn't support it at a high enough level to be in the early access stuff.
Okay,
you supported it at a high enough level to get that email this morning, though.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I think that went out to everybody who backed it, but some exciting news there.
Why don't
you're gonna have to fill people in?
Yeah, let's learn, Michael.
Yeah, so originally, well, I guess it started off with a little bit of bad news. Actually, they hit us with the bad news first before dropping something surprising on us. The original plan was they were going to introduce roguelike elements into the game, so procedural generation of some of the environments, and it sounded from the update like that was not going to be feasible in the end, because the version of the code that they had written the roguelike for was incompatible with the final version of the code.
That sounds odd, but I'm not a programmer.
It was the brief synopsis they gave.
My guess was they got it working to a certain point, and then we're like, all right, we'll come back to this later. Made the rest of the game and forgot about the roguelike stuff. We're like, oh yeah, we need to do this. Went back and looked at that code, and we're like, ooh, this isn't gonna work.
We'd have to scrap this and start all over.
And then maybe they looked at it and were like, actually, this stuff isn't that fun. I don't know if people really wanted this anyway. And then they came...
Roguelikes are fun.
Procedural generation in a Metroidvania is... I don't know that I want that.
Okay, fair enough.
I think crafting where you go is half of the fun of the game.
Yeah.
But,
okay.
Yeah, I like the way that they set up the castle and all of its different environments.
Maybe a game that would be planned that way from the beginning.
Yeah, that would definitely be a thing.
So then came the good news. Andy, what if instead of changing the castle, they told us that we could change everything else?
This is now a randomizer podcast.
Yeah, it is.
Look, I got a little bit of time to myself on Sunday. And if I could make Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order into a randomizer after I finish this playthrough, I would do it.
What is there to randomize?
This is it's the same as like a Dark Souls and stuff. Like your robot and stuff has powers it needs to get through certain doors. So like if you want your Scomp Link or your Overcharge or whatever else, you have to find the workbench that has it.
Got it. Okay. Because I was like, you're finding weapons and armor and stuff, which is the thing that the Dark Souls randomizer flips around. Well, I guess it also does like keys and stuff too.
Yeah, really the only thing would be keys and enemies, I guess, that you could randomize in Star Wars. Oh, no, that's not true. Force powers. You have to unlock force powers as the game goes on. So you could unlock those in the wrong order or something. That could be interesting.
So they announced they're going to do this for Bloodstained, right? That's the kick of the email, Michael?
Yep. Yeah, and so they included, along with it, they include a snapshot of the randomizer menu. And it looks like there's a whole lot of customization that you can do. So you can pick your end point of the game, which one of the different endings will be the goal that you're racing towards. And then there's a whole lot of different options for the things that you can shuffle around, be they regular items or key items or enemy drops. You can even move the save and warp rooms around, which I found interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious how that would work. Like, move them where?
So they must be... that must be some little nod to the roguelike, where those rooms are coded in such a way that they just tack them onto like corners or edges of the map.
Yeah.
It moves them randomly around.
Because like that's, to me, those are the thing that like half the reason those being laid out where they are is what makes the traversal either difficult or not difficult in a section, right?
Right.
And like, if you can randomize the enemies, first off, randomizing the enemies is already dangerous enough, depending on who you get, you know? You're like, oh, I put this enemy from some of the like very late game areas right at the gate to the castle. Have fun. Like,
oh no.
I noticed that's the one thing that it doesn't look like they randomize are the enemy locations. You can randomize the enemy drops.
Oh.
But I didn't see enemies in the image of that menu.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so if you can't randomize the enemies, that like removes a really annoying potential feature.
Right.
And so you're guaranteed to have there's a chance that you will be able to get through here and you're just using the Kung Fu shoe or whatever the like first drop you get is.
Kung Fu shoe.
I think that's the first one, right? Don't you get a shoe weapon first?
Yeah,
I love that.
It is a shoe weapon that's right off the bat. But with the enemies, I bet you'd have problems with spacing of some of those giant enemies at the end.
Oh, right.
Passageways.
Yeah, there's that whole zone where everything is like 4 times size.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about all that. Yeah. That makes sense, actually. But then like the other options you get are like, hey, do you want to randomize like the movement power locations? Or like leave those alone, but randomize the items and the movement powers, but like maybe not the quest drops, or everything completely random, or some in between set of those.
One of the checkboxes is literally called chaos.
Yeah.
What a great name.
It should always be chaos.
Yeah. And like, the way the menu seemed laid out, it looked like it would let you mix and match all of these various parameters, which could create some like truly interesting races and stuff if you really wanted to do the like, okay, I don't want to play like a super long game, so we'll just go to like the quick ending, and then all this stuff is like set on chaos, so you have to beat, maybe only 3 or 4 bosses to get there, but like good luck if you can't find the double jump until like your 5th boss or whatever.
I need double jump. That's what I need.
I am excited to both play this and watch races of people playing the same seed.
Do you think that Bloodstained seems to have a pretty large following? Do you think that that's going to be a regular staple of the speed running community?
Hard to say. I know the the Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past randomizer was super popular.
It's pretty popular.
But that game is also super popular, and like I don't know that Bloodstained is as popular as that game. There is also a Symphony of the Night randomizer, right?
I think so.
There is. Yes. I don't know that is as popular as base Symphony of the Night. So again, it's like this is a thing they're adding in a free update. You're going to get some amount of people who are going to be like, oh, I'll check back in on this to see this thing. But, is it going to drive like a bunch more people to suddenly replay this game? Hard to say.
Okay.
But
I guess they did say they're adding a new character, right? Like a playable character?
Yes. So they have been planning, I think pretty much since the beginning, to add Zangetsu as a playable character. He's one of the characters who you meet along the way. He's kind of important to the progressing the storyline at certain points.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that they have been intending to insert him as a playable character. Not sure how they'll work that into the story,
Yeah, I wonder if like you then see Miriam at certain points as in the story, right? Like Zangetsu shows up and then like flies away off screen. It's like, and then you don't run into him again for a while.
Yeah, you've got to fight him a couple of times actually. So
yeah, he's a boss.
Do you fight yourself? Does it flip and you fight Miriam?
Yeah, great question. And like because of a certain specific thing that you get from Zangetsu, like an item you need to get to the end game, do you just start with that item?
Well, if you turn on the randomizer, who knows?
Yeah, true. There you go, right? So I think that's super cool. A good way to make good on what would otherwise be a failed Kickstarter promise. And yeah, I hope that comes out really cool. They didn't really say when it's coming out, though, did they?
They did not give a date on that one, but they did say that those two updates would both be free and that they would launch together.
Okay, so it's like a pretty sizable content drop for you there, both randomizing and the, what do you call it, the new Zangetsu character.
Yeah. I hope, my one real hope for this is that they will let you take a completed save file and randomize yourself a New Game Plus. Because that would make for a fun race, right? Everybody is just kind of I don't know.
What would you randomize if you already had all the powers and stuff?
Yeah, that's my question also. Finding the powers is the fun, or half the fun anyway.
Yeah, that's true. You could still randomize the key drops, right? So you can't and you're just racing to get to the end first.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's cool that they're building in stuff like, hey, it's automatically timed for you, and you can pick your endpoint so you don't have to play through the whole true ending thing, which, I mean, the true ending is part of the game, but also is like a bunch of extra dungeons that are not necessarily easy, but, again, not required in order to beat the game. So like you could choose to do the like get to the top of the castle and kill the Dracula equivalent and be done.
Yeah.
I think that's
I also like that unlike some Kickstarters, they didn't just say, hey, we told you we were going to try and do this cool thing, but that's not going to happen. Instead, they said, hey, this cool thing isn't going to happen, but here's this other cool thing we think you'll like.
Yeah, they at least tried to do a make good, right? Which is, it's showing that they're still there, which is good.
Nice.
Well, I don't know what else you guys have been up to. I have been still working my way through Warcraft 3 Reforged, the campaigns.
Are you ready to ask for a refund yet?
I mean, why? I'm still playing. I haven't even finished the Blood Elf campaign. I've done the 3 main campaigns from Reign of Chaos, right?
You're getting what you wanted.
Yeah, I'm getting what I wanted. I played through the what is the first one after that? The Sentinel campaign, right? With Maev and wanting to put Elodin back in jail. That's her whole deal. And now I'm playing the Blood Elf campaign with Kael'thas and those guys. And the Naga are in there.
It's such a mess. I don't even know.
The lore is so weird.
Back. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's like I can't think about going back and trying to make sense of it these days.
They go to Outland all of a sudden and they're like, oh no, we're lost in the Hellfire Peninsula.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is a big zone, like, so it's really interesting. I'm still liking it. There's a tower defense mission though. Those are fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Tower defense. Cool.
TD.
Yeah. Blizzard made tower defense.
We could go for a new tower defense. I think there hasn't been one that's really broken through in a while.
People are still making them. I don't know that there's popular ones that anymore, but they're definitely.
There was
still
a heyday of them when Warcraft 3 was alive, and there just hasn't been. I mean, there's been a bunch of fun ones. I've had some for my phone and they're great, but I just don't feel like there's been one that's like mainstream broken through.
Yeah, I feel like they all kind of moved to mobile because it's really easy to play that kind of a game on a phone.
Oh shit! Yeah, of course.
We're not interested in playing Plants vs. Zombies again for the 15th time.
Look, Plants vs. Zombies was a very innovative and fun TD when it came out. I have 100%ed that game twice at least.
And then Plants vs. Zombies 2, though.
And then
100% a TD.
Look, I don't. What's that?
Exactly. When you could 100% a TD.
100% a TD.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Before it was free to play, I paid $15 for that game twice. Right? Because I wanted it on my PC when it came out on PC, and then they were like, "Hey, we put it on Xbox." I was like, "Okay, cool. I'll pay for it again." That was fun. I 100%ed in both places. And then Plants vs. Zombies 2 came out, and I said, "You're dead to me." I said it like that. By the way, hold on. Did either of you see Lego Movie 2?
Which?
Yes.
Yeah.
The second one?
Yeah.
I just saw it. And I know
you hadn't seen it?
Welcome to the club.
No one told me Bruce Willis was in that movie.
I seem to recall JJ and we discussed that on the pod and intentionally avoided mentioning that.
Yeah, we didn't say that part, I'm pretty sure.
No one told me Bruce Willis was in that movie as Bruce Willis from Die Hard, but also just Bruce Willis.
It's a great little moment.
I hang out in air ducts.
So good.
I feel like that's not a spoiler at this point, but yeah, somehow I missed that one. I needed a little bit of time off from this house project, and we watched Lego Movie 2, and that was worth the time.
Lego Movie 2 is good. It was a good movie.
Surprisingly better than I thought it would be, considering I knew the twist when I looked at the poster for the movie. You know what I mean? You know, I don't know. I could tell you what that was going to be from the beginning, and it still didn't matter. That's what I like about movies that have twists. If you can't trick me, don't try. Just make it not matter. Make the movie good enough.
I think it's impressive that they were able to follow up a movie, the first Lego movie, which had like an all-time great twist, right? Like the end of that
was very good.
The end of that movie is unbelievably good. And them following it up, now you already know the thing, and still making a good movie despite that is like impressive.
Yeah, I mean, they get a little out there this time around, but it's still good.
It's a sequel. They got to do more.
Sure. Yeah. So, absolutely.
Great movie, man. All right. Well, I think there's only like two quick things I want to talk about. Hey, we talked about TV last time a little bit for like a brief minute.
The Witcher TV, which, man, there's nudity in that, by the way.
There is.
There's a lot. Game of Thrones had nudity, and this is like, whoa.
What about boobs, though? You know? Like, they're definitely asking you, what about boobs in this show?
I feel like, though, if you knew anything about the games...
I get it, but I didn't get it because I played mostly the card game. And so, JJ, there's a scene where Yennefer takes over the mayor's house.
I know what you're talking about. What about boobs, though?
Yeah, what about if she just... Yeah. Boobs. Yeah. Everywhere.
When we watched The Witcher, my wife commented on this also. It was like, kind of a lot of sex and nudity in this show. It was like, yeah. I mean, it felt like The Witcher to me because it also, the games are that way.
Okay.
But like also kind of a lot for a Netflix show. It just was unexpected.
Maybe you're right. Maybe that's the jarring thing is that Netflix, at least in the genres of things I have watched on Netflix, has not delved this deep in that that dungeon, let's say. Anyway, I didn't mean to derail your TV talk. Go ahead.
Dungeon. So the thing I wanted to point out was that a show that all of us have watched on Netflix is Castlevania.
Oh, it's back.
Right?
Tomorrow. Today? Tomorrow. This week, sometime.
This week. As after of this recording, yes. After this recording is out, I think like a day or two later, there will be a new season of Castlevania to watch. Are you guys excited?
Yes, very much so.
Get at me.
Yeah. Those first 2 seasons were really, really good. So
the second season surprisingly better than the first because they had more to do.
Yes, the second season way better than the first, I will argue.
The first season felt like an entire season of a pilot.
Yes.
The second season was like, we got stuff to do.
They moved, man.
Yeah. Laid down the groundwork, let's go.
But spoilers, skip ahead 1 minute if you don't want to know. Season 2 is ending. And I literally mean just 1 minute. The guy is dead, so what are they going to do?
What is the deal, man? They killed Dracula, so, what are we going to do here?
Yeah.
I guess his castle is still around, but...
I guess so.
Yeah.
They set up some other bad guys.
Of course. There were a bunch of bad guys.
So maybe they have to go chase them down or something.
They didn't kill every vampire,
No, they did not.
So,
okay.
I am super excited for that.
Yeah, let's do some Dracula.
This last week, I was like, oh man,
dude, you got stuff to do. You need to watch more Iron-Blooded Orphans.
I knew you were going to bring that up. I'm almost done with season 1. So.
Dude, he texts Michael. I've been texting the group about this show with no spoilers for months as I finished it. And he gets through a pivotal episode of season 1 and just my phone blows up.
I knew he knew, so I sent him the thing of why they got to do this to this guy.
Yep.
And he's like, I told you, man.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, that show really goes for it, man. So I'm excited to see the ending. I've only got 2 episodes left, so.
Yeah, and the next season there's a title shift beginning with what you just witnessed. It changes. It's not like anime where oh no, this thing happened, we're all different now. There's a title shift in all the characters and how they behave now. And it really, the show in season 2 goes a completely different direction than you would think. Oh, this is Gundam. Okay.
But
not so much anymore.
Justifiably, there's a change.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
You go, oh,
it's not just they decided to do a different thing with the show now and they're doing something else.
Well, they're getting sucked into world politics here, right?
Well, yeah. There's a lot of world politics stuff going on.
Right. So they're gonna get dragged completely into the middle of it as a pawn of everybody. Right. And so when that kind of stuff happens, it just doesn't just reset at the new season into these characters are unchanged or whatever. Season 2 is okay, so they're still in the middle of this, and do they want out of it? Do they not want out of it? Who do they want to be? Anyway, that is different writing than any Gundam I've ever seen.
So, Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans on Netflix now. Highest recommendations from this podcast.
Oh, dude. I'm glad someone else is on board. I really felt maybe I'm too out there on this. He hasn't been texting me like I thought he would about this show.
I am just a really slow watcher of these things because I like to watch them subtitled, which means that I have to pay attention and I can't just put it on the side.
Oh, okay.
And so I can only watch an episode or 2 a night or less generally because I don't want to spend the time to concentrate watching it.
I know this is blasphemy. The English voice actors are pretty good.
Okay.
No.
I just, I'm putting it out there. It's not
great.
I still wouldn't watch this show on the side. I tried because I thought it was Gundam, and then I got to when they get into politics, and I was like, oh, okay, hold on. We got to pay attention here because there's a lot of new characters coming out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great show. People should watch it. So
was Iron-Blooded what your number 2 thing was, or was that not number 2?
Oh no, that was my number 2 because number 1.
Okay, good.
Number 1 was Castlevania.
I've run us out of time.
Nah, it works out because number 1 was Castlevania. I mean, unless you want to talk about The Witcher, but I don't think we have enough time. So
no, I mean we only have crawled a little bit further through. I mean,
you're not done yet. So
right, yeah. I mean, the biggest thing to have happened was Geralt and Yennefer have their episode together.
Got it.
And that's kind of where we ended off. So.
Yeah. What? So curious to see what you think when you finish that show.
I'm liking it. We have time for one small comment on The Witcher. Something that I didn't realize. I knew George R. R. Martin had changed the game when it came to fantasy. And a lot of people will like tell you it's because no character was safe, even though half the characters were always safe. Or like it's because it's accessible fiction, or like
when you approached it from the books, though, I don't think it was as obvious from the book end which characters are safe as it was from the TV show end.
Yeah, fine. Something I didn't realize until we started watching this show, and I was watching it, was anything that exists in that world is flatly explained with common terms. So it's not like magic is just the word magic. It's not like there doesn't have to be a 5-minute explanation that chaos is magic and chaos has different this and that. It's just like, no, it's just like magic, dude. And like the factions are the Night's Watch, whoever, like the gods. There's the drowned god. There's the dragon god. You know what I mean? Like the basic stuff. King's Landing. And then you watch The Witcher, and they're talking about like in the Broccolon forest are the Scoia'tael and the Dryads and the this and the that, and there's the primal powers and the chaos powers and I could see that we had to pause every few minutes so that somebody else's eyes didn't glaze over.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize Martin had kind of tried to eschew that part of very standard tropes in Tolkien fiction.
Yeah, I was going to say also Martin intentionally didn't include most of those tropes in his thing, right? Like
absolutely, that's
Martin
what I'm saying.
Is like, guess what? No elves. Also, like, by the way, no dwarves. Also,
right.
Like, by the way, like forests are just where people live and cut down trees.
Tolkien fiction is heavy with like making sure that this world existed before you.
Tolkien was a history guy that ended up writing some kids' books, not the other way around.
Right. But everyone took that and ran with it. This must be the fiction everyone wants to read. And we did. We did when we were kids. It does not bother me that I have to learn thousands of names every time I read a fiction book.
Yes.
Right? Okay, the Scoia'tael, the this, the that.
Hey, guess what? Scoia'tael are the elves. People don't like them.
Right.
So exactly.
Martin would just be like, elves, bro.
Yeah, Martin would just be like, humans, bro. There aren't any elves here.
True. Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. Even though he had elves in there, he just didn't call them elves.
Yeah, kind of. But then you also never see them, so are they really there? Yeah. So anyway, I'm very curious. We'll have a bigger, more in-depth discussion on The Witcher, maybe.
We're getting there. It's just it's
someday.
A slog.
Yeah, I know.
It's not a slog because of the show. It's a slog.
You're talking to a person who can't watch more than like one 30-minute episode of an anime. Like watching a 58-minute TV show, I get
a shameless plug. You better be watching some Picard before we record on Friday.
Oh yeah.
So look forward on your calendars, people of Earth, to March 13th when we'll air another Star Trek subpod. That will have been a month.
And there will be a bunch of Picard talk on it.
Oh, my Lanta.
Well,
can I just say Borg Queen? Borg Queen.
Sure, you can say that.
Borg Queen. All right, Michael.
Michael, if people want to talk to us about Borg Queens, The Witcher, or Baldur's Gate 3, where can they do that?
People can email us at podcast@weweregamers. We love getting email from all of our listeners. We will read and respond to you, most likely on the air. We can also be found on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We are We Were Gamers on all of those places. We can also be found on your podcasting app of choice. Where are we? Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Play.
Hey,
Google Podcasts.
You can make it easier. If you haven't found us on a podcast player of choice, email us.
Yeah, tell us where to go. We would be happy to do some of that. And if you just have like a music playing app like Spotify, we're on there too. So we will follow you wherever is convenient.
Yeah. And if the idea of those Star Trek pods sounds good to you, then check us out on YouTube.
Yes.
They're not only on YouTube, but there is a playlist there where you can just click it and then the audio plays automatically for you in order in those episodes only.
Convenient feature.
Who knew? I'm Brilliant at Orphans, has very few Gundams in it.
Shockingly few, honestly.
Season 2 adds one that is the bomb.